sometimes you want to mention how great I am.
I literally just hit play and I caught that on camera, and I hope it picked it up because I'm leaving it in the video. Howdy! Today I am filming my April 2022 reading wrap-up. I haven't filmed a wrap-up video since January. This year's been a little rough, but I'm feeling a bit better. And yeah, I read 10 books this past month, which for me, that's like a decent amount of books. Considering that I typically read like 3 books a week, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm just gonna get into it. I'm not going to go into like super detail about what these books are about. If you're interested, I really recommend following my Bookstagram or checking any of my past vlogs. I'll go ahead and link the past vlogs in the description below. But yeah, so I read 10 books this month. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm reading my reading journal. So I read 2 young adult romance books, one being fantasy and one contemporary. I read 4 Taboo, like Rockstar romances, 1 Mafia Romance, and 3 historical romance. 2 of them being Western, and then 1 of them being like a darker historical romance. And really, like 6 of the books that I read, so 6 out of the 10 books for the past month, all of them are like based in the dark romance genre. Yeah, decent reading month. So the first book that I read in April was Serpent and Dove. This is a young adult fantasy romance, and it's a like forbidden enemies to lovers romance between a witch hunter and a witch. I really enjoyed this book. I loved the world building in this book and how magic was used. I gave this book a 4-star simply because the romance aspect of it kind of fell flat for me. And yeah, I still really enjoyed it. I'm actually about to do a buddy read in April for the second book in the series called Blood and Honey. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I also read the first 4 books in the Ashes and Embers series by Carian. These are Rockstar romances, but they all kind of have this sort of dark taboo feel to them. Or the first book in the series is Storm. I gave this book 3-star. It was okay, it just wasn't my favorite. The taboo element of this book is cheating, and honestly that's probably why I gave it a 3 stars, because the cheating thing is kind of hard for me to get behind, but the way that this book plays out, it kind of makes sense. Basically, it follows our heroine, who I can't even remember her name. The heroine's name is Evelyn, and basically she's on her way to like a work convention or something, and it starts snowing really badly and she gets in a car accident, and Storm finds her and he basically has to convince her to stay in his truck with her because they're both stranded out here in the snowstorm. And then they end up forming this friendship and kind of sort of romance. But basically Evelyn's been in this relationship for the past 12 years and the relationship's not that great, and Storm is obsessed with her. So most of the book is him trying to convince her to dump him and go with him. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was okay. It was 3-star. The second book in the series is Vandal. Now this one, I gave this book 2-star. This book is actually my lowest rated book for the month. Yeah, this book is pretty heavy. There's a loss of a child. Basically, the book starts with Vandal. He was involved in a really bad car accident, and one of his friends and his 5-year-old daughter actually passes away. And the driver of the other vehicle also passed away. And basically, Vandal comes across the driver's wife. And Vandal basically seduces her and convinces her to stay with him. And Vandal doesn't tell her that he was the other driver in the car accident. So the reason why I rated this so low is because Vandal's character just makes some choices in the book that made me really frustrated. I didn't think that it was fair for him to react in certain situations, considering that he was keeping this really big secret from our heroine. What was her name again? I keep forgetting everybody's names. Yeah, her name's Tabitha, sorry. And then, yeah, so towards the end of the book, Vandal does some groveling towards Tabitha, but then the epilogue. The epilogue was so out of character, and it really pulled me away from the story, and it like made it really unbelievable, and it kind of made me mad, which is why I only gave it a 2-star. But I like obviously kept up with the series, and the next book in the series is Lukas. And I'm so glad that I kept reading it because I gave Lukas a 5-star. I loved this book a lot. So yeah, this is about our hero, Lukas and Ivy. I've read Carian Cole's All Torn Up series. I think there's only the first 2 books that's Tied and Torn. And Lukas and Ivy are mentioned frequently, not only in like the past books, but in Tied and Torn as well. So I was really looking forward to reading this. And yeah, I loved it. This is reverse age gap. So older heroine, younger hero. And our heroine Ivy, she just found out that her partner of like 18 years, or her husband of 18 years, was having an affair. And so to celebrate herself, she decides to get a tattoo, and Lukas is her tattoo artist. Lukas is such a swoony hero. I loved how he was trying to like build this trust with Ivy, and he was like really obsessed with her but respected her. I don't know. It was so beautiful. I'm so glad that I was finally able to read about their story. And then the 4th book and the last book that I read in this series was Talon. And y'all, this was my 6-star read for the month. Yeah, this is one of my new all-time favorite books. It's probably going to be in like my top tier books for the year. Yeah, I love this so much. And honestly, I'm probably a little bit biased because Talon and Asia, the heroine named Asia, they kind of remind me of me and my partner. So the setup for this one is really interesting. This is basically like a Rockstar romance that has the like arranged marriage trope in a contemporary setting. Basically, Talon and Asia, they sign up for this social experiment where this team of psychologists and like sex therapists and all these other professionals, they interview different couples for like several months, and then they pair people together, and basically they're not allowed to meet until their wedding day. And then the couples are given 6 months, and they're expected to do like interviews and appointments to like document their experience. And then after the 6 months, they can choose to stay married or not. And then either way, they get like a cash compensation. Yeah. There's so much things in this book that would normally annoy me. Like there's like, you know, lack of communication, a bit of emotional white-fanging in this. But the way that Carian Cole made this work, I loved it so much. This is so far my favorite book in the series. The next book in the series is called Asher. And I've been like super looking forward to that one. And I feel like it might be a favorite too. But yeah, definitely my favorite so far. I love this book so much. I also read a book called Hooked by Emily McIntire. I don't have a physical copy of this book. I got this from my library. I labeled this as Mafia Romance, but it's not explicitly stated that it's a Mafia Romance, but it has something to do with organized crime. So I just labeled it as Mafia. I don't know. But basically Hooked is a contemporary retelling of Peter Pan. but it focuses on the character Hook. But this isn't like a fantasy at all. Like I said, it's definitely like contemporary, very, very dark, organized crime type adult romance. And yeah, I gave this one only 3 stars. It was fun. It's not my favorite. Basically, this is about a man named James, but he goes by Hook. He's involved with this organized crime ring, and he's basically the man who does all the dirty work, if you know what I'm saying. This book's very violent. If you're not into like gore and stuff, I probably wouldn't check it out. There's lots of trigger warnings in this book. But yeah, so basically James comes into contact with this girl named Wendy, and Wendy happens to be the daughter of Hook's nemesis, who's like Peter, and Peter basically ruined Hook's childhood and like his entire life basically, and Hook decides to seduce and kidnap Wendy to seek revenge. Yeah, I gave this 3 star because honestly the romance in it was very lust driven, and I'm not somebody that's super into that. The romance aspect kind of fell flat for me, but I still enjoyed it. You know, I gave it a 3 star. It just wasn't my favorite. The next 3 books that I read for the month were historical romance. Historical romance is one of my favorite genres, and 2 of the books that I read were Western historical romance, which I think I'm really into, or I'm getting into it. So the next book that I read was Topaz by Beverly Jenkins. And this was the Rake Appreciation Society Book Club's pick for the month of April. I missed the live show, but I still did a little bit of the discussion in the Discord. It was really fun. But yeah, this was only my second Beverly Jenkins that I ever read, and I really enjoyed this. I gave it a 4 star. Part of the reason why I loved this book is because our hero named Dick's Wild Horse is actually a Black Seminole from Oklahoma. And Oklahoma is where I'm from, so it was really cool to see the historical aspects play out in this book. And this is basically like kind of forced marriage of convenience, but it's very low angst. All of the bad guys in this book were basically like complete morons kinda, and it was just absolute buffoonery, so it was actually really humorous to read about. And even though it's kind of like a forced marriage, Dix and Kate, they build this like friendship and trust, and the chemistry between them is so good. Beverly Jenkins, I've noticed in the past 2 books that I've read by her, she writes super swoony romance. It's so good. But yeah, this is like Kate is involved in this crazy setup, and she's about to be forced to marry this really bad man. Her father convinces our hero to rescue her because he promises that Dix can marry her so that he doesn't have to go to jail due to some past crimes. Dix agrees. He rescues her, and then they travel back to Oklahoma to start a life together. Yeah, I don't know. It was really beautiful. It was super sweet. I gave it 4 stars because parts of this book sort of dragged on for me. Like, it was fun seeing them, like, in the town that they live in, Oklahoma, but it was like, we just kept going on and on about what was happening in town, and I was kind of, like, wanting it to go by faster. But yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to check out more Beverly Jenkins books. The next historical romance that I read was Undressed with the Marquess by Christi Caldwell. So this is actually a part of a 3-book series called The Lost Lords of London. So I can finally say that I finished this series. One of my reading goals this year is that I'm trying to finish all of the historical romances that I finished last year, like all of the series, and I'm in like a ton of, like I'm in the middle of a ton of them. Yeah, but anyways, I gave this book 3.5 stars. The reason why I didn't rate it any higher is because the trope of this book is second chance romance, and I'm just not a big fan of that trope. But yeah, this is like a dark historical romance. I love historical romances that have more darker elements. This follows our hero named Dare. Dare is basically like the Robin Hood type figure of the rookeries in East London. He does like really huge like heists on the aristocracy, and he, like he steals from them, and then all the money that he makes from the stolen goods he gives back to the poor people in the rookeries. And this book starts off with Dare at the gallows, and he is saved by his grandfather, who is actually a duke. Dare is a Marquess, or Marquess, whatever. He actually is a part of aristocracy, but he ran away from home at a young age, and he doesn't want anything to do with his title. But his grandfather is like, look, I'm gonna get it to where you won't be hanged. However, I need you to come back to aristocracy and accept your title. Everybody's in a bunch of financial stress. If you either, one, find a suitable husband for your sister, or two, marry and have an heir, you can get all this money back. And so Dare is like, heck yeah, if I get all this money back, I can give it to the poor people. What nobody realizes, though, is that Dare actually has a wife, and that is our heroine, Temperance. And Temperance and Dare have actually been separated for at least, I think, 3 to 5 years. And Dare seeks Temperance out and is like, hey, we need to resume our wifely, wait, what am I trying to say? We need to resume our marriage duties. Can you help me find a husband for my sister? And Temperance is very apprehensive about this, because this isn't a spoiler because it's like stated at the beginning of the book, but basically Temperance separated herself from Dare because she hated his lifestyle of stealing. And while Dare was away on like one of his trips where he was, doing a big heist, Temperance's father, who is severely abusive to her, found her, and she lost her baby. So this book has a major trigger warning for loss of a child. It's very violent. I don't recommend reading this if that's like a major trigger for you. But yeah, it was really good. But I did give this a 3.5 just because the second chance romance trope isn't my favorite. The third and last historical romance that I read for this month was Lawless by Patricia Potter. This came out in like 1983 or something. So it has the gorgeous painted cover, the oil painting. I love this cover. It's so gorgeous. And this is a Western historical romance. And I want y'all to know that I read this physically, and I had been struggling to read physical books, and I'm so proud of myself because this is pretty chunky and the print's pretty small. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. This is Western historical romance, and it's a romance between a gunfighter named Lobo and our heroine, Willow, who basically inherited this ranch. So Lobo is hired by this really angry rancher to scare Willow from this property that she inherited, because the property is tied to this really long-standing feud between these 3 ranchers. And of course, since this is a romance, Lobo goes to do that, but then sparks fly and the chemistry starts, and Lobo isn't able to scare off Willow. I had never read Patricia Potter before. I really, really love her writing. It reads very cinematic. The entire time that I was reading this book, I was like envisioning like an old-timey like Western film or TV show. Yeah, and then the chemistry was so swoony and beautiful between Lobo and Willow. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I didn't give it 5 stars because, again, kind of like the same issue that I had with Topaz, the pacing of this book was just kind of slow. So it was hard for me to like keep up with my attention span while reading. But yeah, I loved it. I can't wait to check out more books by this author. And finally, the last book that I read for this month was Last Chance Books by Kelsey Rodkey. This is a young adult contemporary romance. I actually read this for Heather's book club. Her channel is called Heather's Happily Ever Afters. I'll link her channel down below. But yeah, she has a book club called Happily Ever Afters, and this was the pick for April. I enjoyed this. It was really cute and funny. Like, parts of this book were genuinely hilarious. Like, I was actually laughing out loud. Basically, this is about our heroine named Madeline. I think it's Madeline. And Madeline's family owns this local bookstore, but the bookstore is starting to do bad financially, partly because a newer, like, corporate bookstore opened across the street from them. And this book is basically an enemies to lovers story because Madeline has this crush on this guy named Jasper, and turns out Jasper is actually the owner's son, like the owner of the corporate bookstore across the street. So they start this big feud where they're basically playing pranks on each other, and then the pranks kind of escalate to like a more chaotic state. Yeah, I don't know. It was really fun. I really empathized with Madeline's character and like the amount of stress that she was feeling throughout this book, because like she had just graduated high school. It's like the summer before she's about to go off to college. She turns 18 in this book, and she's trying to deal with like entering adulthood and all of these major changes happening in her life, which can be, you know, like a really scary and intimidating thing to go through. I think if you're an actual like young adult and you read this book, it would be easy for you to really be in the headspace that Madeline was in. And yeah, I don't know, her and her little romance with Jasper was cute. I gave it a 4-star, mostly just because like they're young adults, you know, and so the physical aspect of their relationship was kind of awkward for me to read. Like it read very much like 17, 18-year-olds fooling around, which I'm like not really into reading. Like it was fine. There's not a ton of smut in this book, which I was not expecting there to be a ton of smut either. But like that's the reason why I gave it a 4 stars, because I was kind of like, yeah. But yeah, that's the books that I read this month. But yeah, like I said, if you want like more detailed reviews of these books, I highly recommend checking out my Bookstagram or my vlogs listed down below. And yeah, 10 books a month is a really good number for me, and I'm excited to read more books in May. But yeah, I'm gonna go, guys. If you want, you can comment down any books that you're looking forward to reading next month, or the amount of books that you read. And if you want, if you made it this far in the video, if you could leave me a book stack emoji, that would be great. But yeah, I'm gonna go, guys. Bye-bye.